When we read fiction, we want to pay attention to a number of things. Of course, we want to talk about the plot. We want to think about the introduction, the rising action, the climax, and the denouement. We think about what happens over time, what happens in terms of emotional intensity. That's simply one aspect of thinking about fiction. We also can consider setting. This is the time and location in which a piece of literature takes place. And we want to pay careful attention to this. If it's something in the present, in the past, in the author's past, in the author's present, where is it and how is it described? We also want to think about the point of view. Who narrates the story? Is it a first-person point of view story, so told by the narrator, and the narrator is an I in this? Is it second person? Is it addressing someone? Is the primary address saying you all the time? Third person, and this is most common, really. This is when you have a narrator who is outside the story, not within it. This narrator can be omniscient, so that this narrator knows everything that everyone is thinking. This can be a limited omniscient narrator who knows what some characters are thinking, but not others. We also want to think about tone. Again, this is the attitude of the author towards the topic of the piece. Is it ironic? Is it joyful? Is it sad? Is it angry? Is it some other complex set of emotions? We want to think, too, about irony. Verbal irony is an important aspect of the work. And irony in general is when one thing is said and another thing is meant. That can, when we have dramatic irony, we're talking about the audience knowing something that characters do not. For example, in Romeo and Juliet, we know when characters are actually dead and when they're faking their deaths. So that, of course, there's great tragedy in the final scene of Romeo and Juliet where, excuse me, Romeo takes his own life because he doesn't realize Juliet is actually alive. But the audience knows this. And of course, we're interested in thinking about characters and how they develop. We have flat characters. Those are the characters who are not particularly well fleshed out, that they are very two-dimensional. Round characters, much broader, much more deeply developed characters who seem more realistic, more lifelike. Static characters who are unchanging. Dynamic characters who change over the course of the narrative. When you think about characters, I've got some questions for you to think about. So who are the principal characters? Right? This is simply a question of fact. We need to get that information, that some things that you read will have many, many characters, some will only have a few. But who are the most important ones? Who are central? Which characters change and which stay the same? And how do we know this is a big part of that question? The same thing with seeming fully realized or round, or seeming very one or two-dimensional, those flat characters. And we ultimately want to ask with them, why do the characters do what they do? What motivates them to do the things they do? What do they think about? What do they express to an audience? What do they suggest to the audience through their actions?